Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session in Scottish Summit 2021. We are delighted to be here after an absolutely epic event in 2020. It was the last event for a lot of us, the last event that we could actually be there for a lot of us. My name is Mario, and I have here with me Eickhel. Hello, Eickhel.
Hey, how are you?
Very good, mate. And we're here to talk to you about, what's the weather like. So we're going to show you a very easy way to actually get started on PCF controls. We're going to explain what PCF is and where it comes from. And also we're gonna give you a really nice use case using the Accuweather API, which actually you can take that example and you can recreate it with whatever API you need. So let's go to the next slide, and let's first of all, this event couldn't be possible without the sponsors. So a big thank you to all of those companies that have collaborated with the event. This is a massive event, and without them, it wouldn't be possible. So who are these two? Now we're going to do a very short introduction about who we are. My name is Mario Trueba, and I work for KPMG International. My role is MIA Business Applications Technical Lead. I leave my Twitter over there, and I've been working with Dynamics and the Power Platform for the past 11 years. And last year, actually, thanks to Super Eickhel, I received the MVP award. So I'm really happy.
MVP.
Exactly. This is actually my first event after the MVP, so I'm really happy about it. And here's my partner, Eickhel.
Yeah, my name is Eickhel. I'm a team lead at Eickhel in the business applications team. Well, you have my Twitter handle there. So whatever you need, you can contact me with any request or anything, any doubt about Power Apps, Power Platform, or whatever. We really love working with Power Platform. So anything you need, you can ask me.
I'm gonna say Eickhel is one of the best, absolutely best in Power Apps, and he has just delivered. That is why I also call him, my partner in crime, because every time that I have something that is complicated about Power Apps, he always has the answer. He has just delivered an amazing book called the Power Apps Cookbook. That is available on Amazon. So if you want to check it out, it's absolutely brilliant. And Eickhel, I'm so happy that you have delivered that one.
Thank you.
Right. So let's start talking about PCF, right? So, but before we start talking about PCF, let's also talk about where does this come from? Okay, let's talk about how we have been doing customizations and changes and extending the user experience on both Dynamics and also in Power Platform. So back in the old days, and we're going to start with CRM4. Okay, we're not going to go down to CRM 1.2 or 3.5. We're going to go back to the beginning at CRM4. The way that we had to extend, and actually for those of you that are thinking that have in your mind the XRM, this is actually going to resonate a lot. Okay, for those of you that were not working with Dynamics back in those days, XRM was the way that we had to extend the functionality that Microsoft was giving us already. So in CRM4, we could do that using JavaScript. Okay, it was still limited. The usage of web resources, something like that, were a little bit limited. Then we move on to CRM 2011, and actually we had more development, okay, more things to do. So we had Silverlight at that point, which was a technology. For those of you that haven't played with it, it was actually a technology that was quite cool, but actually ended up being discontinued. But then we also have web resources, so similar to the way that we were doing it in CRM4. Then we move on to Dynamics 365, and things start to change a little bit, okay? Already over there in 2013, 2015, 16, and what then was renamed to Dynamics 365, we could already see that there was a change in Microsoft minds. Okay, they were actually telling us, rather than coding everything, rather than using your developers for everything, actually, we're going to bring you things that the business users can start working with. And then they brought the business rules. So basically, business rules were a way of kind of like removing some of the JavaScript that we were putting on the forums in order to be able to make it easier for a business user to change it. So hiding and showing, things like that. Then from there, we move into the proper low-code platform like we have with Power Apps right now, where the rise of the citizen developer and actually getting less and less done in code. So what does this mean? Is Microsoft giving us a message? Is basically Microsoft telling us, well, guys, it's we had a good run, but it's time for you to move on to other technologies. Is that what they're telling us? I mean, should we just pack our things and just leave? Well, actually, it is not. It is not okay, because actually Microsoft has given us a new hope. Actually, there is a new hope, and Eickhel is gonna have his amazing t-shirt. I forgot mine. So actually, Eickhel has already told me off before this. But actually, for us developers, we had a new hope in the like of the Power Apps component framework. So what is the Power Apps component framework? Well, it's basically explained in a nutshell. It's basically as if Microsoft has given us the tools that they use to build the Power Platform, to build all these components, to build all the items that we also see on sales and customer service in Dynamics. Remember, guys, sales, customer service, all the Dynamics apps in customer engagement, they are nothing else than a Power App. It's just a Power App sitting on top of the database. That's it. Let's get this out of the way. So basically what we have now is Microsoft has given us those tools in order for us to be able to build components, okay? In order for us to be able to build more tailored experiences that then we can use ourselves, or even better, we can actually give it to those citizen developers to use on their applications. And this is where we have the citizen developers and the broad developers working together in these fusion teams and delivering value to the business in a much more better way, right? Because those citizen developers will be able to understand what the business needs much easier, and then they will be able to wow them with what the pro developers are creating on PCF. So why you should be looking at PCF if you haven't looked at it before? Why should you be looking at PCF right now? Well, because first of all, they are very reusable, and actually points 1 and 2 are actually correlated. You can use PCF in model-driven apps. You can use PCF in Canvas apps, and you will very soon going to start to be able to use PCF on portals. And that's really going to be a game changer, okay, especially for the portal development. It already contains a full CLI, which Eickhel is gonna show us later on, and a full testing suite capabilities. So you can test everything, all the components that you're going to be creating. And actually, guys, they're actually, this is not something that is brand new, and I mean, it is brand new. It is brand new and shiny, correct? But they're actually, it is built using web technologies that, even though they haven't been there for us, they don't have a background of 20 years. Actually, the concept upon which these technologies are built has been there for very, very long time. And we're talking about things like TypeScript, React, Angular. So actually, there are so many ways that you can extend and build, customized UIs or customized component, as we're going to show you later, to maybe tackle some of those requirements that, maybe you can do it out of the box, but maybe, you want to give it a little twist. Or maybe rather than actually creating a custom connector, for example, in Power Automate, you don't want to bring Power Automate into the equation, and you would rather, have a component directly. Which this actually takes me to my last point. PCF is a fantastic technology to actually start getting rid of a lot of those JavaScript of 200 lines of code that we have in our forms, in our model-driven apps. I'm looking at
CRM hacking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Proper XRM, what we used to do before. So PCF is actually the best tool to actually start replacing all those JavaScripts into components. This is a key, okay, and actually coming to whether we should just go crazy with PCF or not. PCF is shiny, PCF is new, PCF is very, very powerful. Actually, it is too powerful sometimes, okay? Too powerful for our own good. So we might think, and let's talk about the elephant in the room. Can we recreate completely the dynamic sales app within a PCF control? We could potentially do it, yeah. Actually, Eickhel and I can, start working on that, and over a year we'll probably, come up with exactly the same thing. Is it worth it for us to do? Is it worth doing it? Absolutely no. Okay. So this is also the key about PCF. It is a technology that it is important that we tailor and we get very specific. Okay, we don't try to reinvent the wheel. Okay, sometimes we can just use a Canvas apps to kind of like provide the user with the same experience. Maybe we are on a model-driven app, and maybe the user wants to see some fancy graphics, or maybe they want to see some fancy drop-downs. Well, actually, you can just use a Canvas app. You can embed a Canvas app and bring that user experience rather than having to create a PCF control. Also, out of the box should always be the priority. But this is not only on PCF. Actually, every time that we're talking about Dynamics and Power Platform, always try to use out of the box as much as possible. Now, the fourth point is about some UI testing framework are still catching up. Okay, PCF is actually that you're basically bringing, and you will see it later when Eickhel shows us the demo. You will see that as soon as you open the app, it's going to basically throw you a warning saying there are components in this app that have not been developed by Microsoft, and that is what it is. I mean, that is PCF is. So that means that some UI testing frameworks are still trying to catch up. Okay, are still getting there. So if you have a huge backlog of tests that you run every time that you deploy to production, be careful with PCF because as the more you introduce, you will need to make sure that you have that in mind. Okay. And as always, guys, let's listen to Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. Oh, come on, it's fine. No, next slide. All right. So what do we need? What do we need to start? Okay. What do we need to kick off this? The first thing that we need is a Windows laptop. Okay. Macs are still not allowed. Unfortunately, I've been asking Microsoft for support on the CLI in Mac for like 2 years, but they still haven't delivered it. So Microsoft, if you're listening to this, which I know you will, of course, please make sure that you bring CLI to the Mac. We need to install Node.js and npm, and Eickhel is going to show us later why is that, because we do need to use some of those commands. We also need Visual Studio Code, or for those of you that are still stuck in the old Visual Studio 2019, which is fantastic, by the way. I love Visual Studio 2019, but once you try Visual Studio Code, it's like, wow, so light. And of course, the Power Apps CLI, which you need to install. You can just download it and install it straight away. And it actually, Eickhel is going to show us a little bit how it works, but it is super simple. Okay. The reason why Microsoft is probably using a lot of that CLI is because it's faster rather than having a UI to build all that, rather than actually having a library on Visual Studio. In terms of knowledge, again, you're going to see how we're going to develop right here a PCF control, and you're going to see how easy it is. But obviously, if you want to develop a control that has some visualizations, you will need to know HTML. Okay, it is basic, and I'm sure a lot of you guys were thinking about this. The other thing that you will need to know is some JavaScript as well. However, JavaScript is not super important. And let me rephrase that. It is important, of course, but actually, if you're telling me, Mario, I know how to use all the JavaScript libraries that comes with the Dynamics SDK, I'll tell you, okay, that is fantastic, but you won't need any of that. That is not the level of JavaScript that we need here. What we need is actually TypeScript, okay, which is something that sits on top of JavaScript, okay. JavaScript is something that we should all be getting into it. It is very easy to learn it. Sorry. Too much talking. Very simple to actually get into it, and it's actually something that it will be there for a long time, guys. So I really recommend you guys getting on board on that. Okay, so for the example that we have, for the Accuweather example, what we're going to do, and Eickhel is going to show you, what we're going to do is we're going to create a PCF component that is going to make a call to Accuweather to get the weather, okay, to get the temperature in degrees, not in Celsius, okay, not in Fahrenheit. Sorry, Americans, but it will be in Celsius.
Don't be afraid.
Now, could that have been achieved with Power Automate? It could. Why are we doing it with PCF? Because we didn't want to use Power Automate in our scenario, okay? And also because we wanted to show you how easy it is to bring any API directly onto our Power Apps just using PCF, okay? There is we don't have a UI component on this control. So the Accuweather API is completely free. It's up to 50 requests. It's completely free. You will need to get an account, and you will get a key. So there is the limitation of 1 key per developer. And over there, you can click on it and get access to the documentation. Eickhel, is there anything else that you want to explain on?
No. You have described everything really good. The 50 requests is a daily 50 request limit on Accuweather. So you can start working, and as Mario was telling you about, we can do this with many approaches. We can do a Power Automate, we can create a custom connector, we can, use a data flow to get the data from Accuweather. There are many ways to do it, but since this is the perfect example, as many of you are going to need to use an API to get some data, to post some data or whatever, this is a perfect example. So you can have this as a boilerplate. So you can take this code, adapt it to your needs, and then use it in your applications. In this case, we are going to use it in a Canvas app. So without further ado, I'm going to start showing you a little bit more information about the requirements. As Mario was telling you about, we're going to need Node.js. This includes the npm package manager, and we recommend you all the time to use the LTS version. This is long-term support version, so you can download the complete release of Node.js. We are going to need also the .NET Framework 4.6.2. You need to download the developer pack, install it in the development machine, and also we're going to need to use the .NET Core 3.1 installation. We're going to need to install all this, and then, as Mario was telling you about as well, we can start working with one editor. We can use Visual Studio 2019 or Visual Studio Code. I really recommend Visual Studio Code because it's lighter, it's more focused on web technologies. You can use it on your device. There's something real, as Mario was telling you about, that we need to use a Windows machine to use the CLI for the Power Apps. But once we get everything structure or the project structure finished, we can take this code and start working with Visual Studio Code on a Mac and start building our solution, and then pack everything in a Windows machine. You can start working with that. I hope that Microsoft, as is moving everything to core versions of PowerShell, of .NET Framework, and all that stuff, we start moving the Power App CLI to a core version, so we can use it on any device. Okay, this is the part that I was telling you about to have on our development machine. But we also need to make some changes to the environment in which we are going to work with, or where our Canvas apps are living. Okay, so in this case, you need to go to the Power Platform Admin Center and then select the environment where your apps are living, and go to Settings, expand Product, and then Features, and then you will see this setting that you need to enable is Power Apps Component Framework for Canvas apps. Once you enable this and then hit Save, your applications are going to be aware that we can use code components in our application when we are designing these applications. So let's start working with that. Oh, I almost forgot something. If you're working with Visual Studio Code instead of Visual Studio 2019, you're going to need to install something first. You can get the Visual Studio installer from the community version that is free when using Visual Studio 2019, and you need to install an individual component. If you go here to the installer, search for Nugget, and then check this one, Nugget Targets and Build Task. This is one way to get it. There's another way to get it that I'm going to put it on the GitHub repository, where we are going to put this code we are going to use. So you can learn all the ways that you can get these targets and build tasks in order for us to use to build our solution to deploy it to our environments. So let's start working with this. First thing we're going to need, we need to create a folder to hold our code components, and let's start creating the solution, the project structure for our component. Okay, where I'm going to copy and paste some things here to be faster. I'm going to explain you what it means. We're going to use the pack. This is the pack CLI that we need to install as well. You're going to see it on the requirements or GitHub repo. Is the one that in the command line starts building stuff. Start building the project, start building the solutions, and all the stuff. In this case, we're saying here packed PCF because we are starting to work with the PCF component. We're going to initialize this component with these parameters. The namespace is something like grouping all these components that we're going to build into one umbrella as an example. This is a namespace for the Scottish Summit. Every component is going to be living with this namespace. The name of the component, in this case, Get My Weather, because it's what we want to accomplish with Accuweather API. And the template is field. It's the one that we can use in Canvas apps. There are other templates that we can use in model driven, but in this case, this template is the one that allows us to integrate with Canvas apps. Once we click enter here, it already creates the folder structure. And the next thing we need to do is call npm install. Why? Because the project structure created by the Power Apps Component Framework CLI puts everything that needs to be installed in our solution, or all the components that we're going to need, or all the web components we're going to need to install in order to start working with this. So once we complete the npm install, we downloaded all the components that we are going to use in our component to create this PCF. Okay, so it takes a couple of seconds, and then once we get here, there's one of the cool things about Visual Studio Code is that you can execute code dot, and it will open Visual Studio Code, a new session of Visual Studio Code in this folder right away. So let's check the folder structure. We have the Get My Weather folder and the node modules that we just downloaded. Once we open Get My Weather, we're going to see some files here, the control manifest and the index.ts. The main file that holds all the configuration of our company is this one. This is the control manifest. This is a manifest file. You will see here that we have, let me zoom out a little, that we have some things that describe our component. The namespace, as we input before, the name, the version, display name, this description key, and all the stuff that describes this component. Also, we have some properties that act as a parameter for this PCF component. It even includes some comments telling you how to build or how to input or how to describe these properties for this component. Why do we have these properties? Because we want this component to be able to talk to the Canvas app or the model-driven app or whatever host that is using this PCF. So these properties act like as a link within the PCF component and the host. Okay. So it gives you an example on how to create this, and we're going to delete this. And we also have the resources section that when we include the code components, the CSS styling, in case we are building a component that has a UI, or all the things that we need in order for our component to work. Okay. So we're going to delete these comments as well. It serves as an example to learn how to do it. And we also are going to delete this part because these are the available APIs that we can use in our PCF components. In the case of Canvas apps, there are little APIs available, but in model-driven there are more. In this case, we're not going to use them, so we are going to delete them. As for the properties, we're going to delete the sample one that gets created for us, and I'm going to copy these properties that I already have configured here for our for our component. Okay, so we have three properties. The API key, as Mario was telling you about, this property allows us to configure or to have our component to be more reusable. Let's say you have this component created for one company or many companies. Each company has a different API key with different building resources or whatever for Accuweather. So you can input the API key you want to use with this component in order to make it reusable. We also are going to need the location, because we want to know the weather information for a specific location, and the weather this will act as an output property because we want to know the weather that it gets queried in this PCF component. The parameters here, or the configurations here, are the display name of this key, the description, the type of information that we are going to get from these properties. For example, single line text is like a string. For example, as the weather, the whole none is a whole number that we are going to receive with the weather in Celsius. Okay. The usage bound means that we are going to get information in and out. You can have input information here that is going to enter information on the PCF component, but all these components, when we want them to be bound, to be linked to each other. And of course, we are going to have all these required because we are going to need them, okay? And let's go to the index file. The index.ts file, what it actually has the code, all the things that you need to have to make it run. You have the constructor here, that is the one that gets executed once we initialize, or once this component gets created. The init, as the name implies, is what gets executed once the component gets initialized. The update view is the one that actually does something whenever he hears a change in the properties. The update view is the one that executes the code. Get outputs is the one that carries all the information that we want to return from our component, and the destroy is just tells you something that you want to execute whenever the PCF component gets destroyed. Okay, and maybe close the connection or send a log or whatever. Okay, I'm going to put some variables here that we want to have. We have the properties that communicate with the host and the PCF component, but we need to have these variables to hold this information from those properties. So I'm going to paste them here. We have the API key, we have the location, and we have the weather. These are going to be the variables that are going to where we're going to work with the information we got from the properties. Okay, and this private output change is the one that is going to be in charge of whenever I need to send some information back to the host, we're going to use this function to return the data. One thing I forgot to tell you about is that once we create our component, do you see that there is a pre-created file here that's called manifest? This is the one that gets in the information information for the host to know which properties do we have available. As you can see, we still have sample properties. We changed the properties that we have here, but in order to acknowledge what we need to do, we need to go to here to terminal, new terminal. It will open a PowerShell terminal, and in here we need to execute npm run build. Why we do this? Because we want the component to know and to recompile everything that is required to communicate with this component. If we go to the generated file, you can see now we have our properties here specified correctly. Sorry. Here in the index, continuing with the index, we are going to set some information. The variables that will hold the information. In the constructor, we are not going to do anything. Once the component gets created, we don't want to run nothing. But we are going to use some code in the initialize component. The first thing is that we want to have the main information, that is the location. We're going to ask if we have this variable. To ask if the properties have values, we can use the context, parameters, location, that is the property we created. If I hover here, you will see is the property component framework string property. And if we have, well, I set it as formatted to have the exact string from the location. We are asking here, if we have this information, use this information. But if we don't have the location, just empty the string, because we don't want anything to be running if we don't have the location first. Once we get the location, go and ask the API for the weather information. And we also have the function that will run the output information back to the host using this initialization. Okay. Now let's go to the here. Let me copy this so I can be faster. We're going to copy the update view. I'm going to tell you what it is all about. Okay. This update view is going to run, as I told you before, whenever we get information from our properties. The first thing that we need to validate is that we have a location. If the location, the location that we the variable inside our component has the same value as the parameters, the location hasn't changed, then return. Whenever I see a change in the location, then go call it the API. So if not, it's going to be calling all the time the API. We don't want that because we have 50 requests per day. So validating this, if we have seen no change in the location, we return. So we don't do anything. But if we have a new location, well, then we ask for the API key the same way from the context, get me the parameters, get me the API key, and save it here in the local variable, and the location as well. Get the location that we just received, and we are going to use, as Mario was telling you about, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't add complex libraries or things into your component if you can have the functions, the native functions from JavaScript. So in this case, we're going to use fetch because it's already available in JavaScript. We're going to fetch as the API documentation tell us to how to do it. We tell them this is the URL. This is the API key that you need to use in order to make those requests. And the query is the location, and we're using the language in Spanish. Okay, we want to get the weather information using this API key from this location in Spanish. We are going to set this request as a get method, and we are going to use another thing that is already available in JavaScript, that is the promises. This works like this: go fetch the data, then in this example, convert it to JSON, then. So it works just like waiting for the other things to complete in order to make all the required process that we need to make to get the weather information. So we convert this to JSON. Then once we get this location information, why? Because the API needs to know the location in their own code. They have a key for every location in the world. So once we get the location, what is the key for this location, we then send another request. Okay, now that I have the actual key for the city that we want the weather, then give me the weather. As you can see, we're querying the locations first, and then we're querying the current conditions, the weather, the actual weather conditions that we have in our location. We send the request as a get. We convert that request as a JSON, and then we can have this information from the response to our local variable. This weather get the exact temperature in metric value, and we convert it to whole number, and notify that we need to make some changes back to the host. So we get to the next function, the get outputs. This is really easy because it only tells us what to return. Return the weather that we got here. We're using this function just to notify that we need to send back some information to the host. In the destroy part, we're not going to use anything. We're just going to save this file, and if everything goes well, we then do our npm run build to see if everything builds correctly. One of the great things of this platform to build components is that we can execute npm start, and we are going to get a web framework or something to test our component. This is great because we can test everything locally without packaging all the component and deploying to some environment. We can use here, as you can see, I was testing with this before. I already have the API key. As you can see, all the properties that we need into our location, already querying Santander, the location of Mario, and the actual weather information from his location. If I input here, for example, Madrid, we can see that the current weather is 11.
11 degrees. Yeah. Can you do Santander again? Let's see what temperature do we have.
Santander. Now we have
today,
14.
Today it's not that good. What about you?
Let me see. Tenerife. Oh, sorry. Tenerife.
Oh,
23. We have good weather
so
here.
Jealous. So jealous.
So everything is working well. This is a great tool because it's not showing nothing here because we don't have an UI in our component, but we can test what happens when we enter the data from our properties and what we get as an output. We get here the weather as the weather value for our component. So the next part is going to be, we're going to hit Control C here to terminate the batch job. Everything is working well. So what we need to do, we need to create a solution to deploy this to our environments. So we can create a for example, let me copy this so I don't make any mistakes. We create a folder inside of our component. We go to this folder. And now we're going to use the pack CLI again, but to create the solution. As you can see, we execute the pack again, solution, because we are going to initialize a solution. The publisher name is going to be Scottish Summit, and the publisher prefix is going to be SSP. It's just like when we're creating a solution in our environment. When we create new solution, it asks this same information, but we're using the CLI to create it from the command line because that's what it's supposed to be doing. Okay, we execute this. It will create, as you can see here, the folder structure for the solution, and then we need to tell the solution to include this component. How we do this? The same way. Pack solution, add a reference, and we need to enter the path of your component. If I put here ... it's telling the solution that add the result or add the components of the previous folder, the PCF folder. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. And what it's doing is getting the result of this PCF component and putting it in the solution. Just like when we have a solution in the admin center and we add an existing component. It's the same thing, but in command line. Now that we have our solution configured, we need to execute ms-build/t-restore. This is part of the Nuggets build task that I showed you earlier on the presentation. This gets all the requirements to build a solution properly. It gets all the information from the Nugget package on how to do this, on how to prepare the solution. As you can see, it made some changes in the object and source and all the solution to build it properly. And the last thing that we need to do is MS build to properly build our package. What does this create? We create this, start working, and everything went well. As you can see here, it creates all the folder configuration for our solution, and in the bin debug, you will see Accuweather solution zip. This is the solution that we can go to our environment and import that solution into our environment to be able to use it in our apps. I already have this actual. Oh, sorry, this is not the the browser. Okay, see, this is the browser. I already have this solution installed here, as you can see here in environments, just to be faster in the in our session. If we go here in solutions, we have the Accuweather solution. You saw it running. If you open the solution, you will see here that we have our component SSP, SCAT Summit, Get My Weather. It says custom control. So what we can do now, use this control as Accuweather.
Excellent. And one thing, team, even though Eickhel is using the default environment over there, it is not recommended to use the default environment. Okay?
Exactly.
So this, I mean, the default environment is an environment for personal use. Okay.
Exactly.
Eickhel is using that one.
Yeah, exactly. This is a developer account for Microsoft 365, so it only gives you one environment. So that's why.
Exactly. Okay.
So
the default environment is not for this. Go for it, Eickhel.
Exactly. So let's have this power up. We create this power up. How can we use these components here? We won't see them if we go here to insert or get more components. We won't see this component we just created. What we need to do is go to here to insert and then custom import components. When we click here, you remember that thing we enabled on the configuration of our environments. It creates this tab here that you can click code, and you will see all the code components that you have in your environment to be able to use them in your apps. So I'm going to select here the Get My Weather component. As you can see here, it will create a new category called Code Components. Once I click here, it will create a blank component. So because we don't have any UI, I'm going to do some dirty work here. I'm going to press that button. Don't mind me.
That's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're not judging at all. Well,
a little.
Just a tiny little.
Okay, here in the input, we're going to set here. We have our properties from our component, as you can see, at the same way as we saw in the test framework, in the API key, the location, and the weather. So what we need to do, we are going to set this button to use an update context, a variable, location name is going to be set as the text input1.text. Remember to name your controls correctly. This is just a test. Okay, this will hold this the information we get from this text input to save it in a variable. And here, what we want to do, we want to get is the actual weather. I'm going to get the name of my component and set the text to. As you can see, we have all the properties here as well. We want the weather here. So, well, what else we need to do? We need to get the API key for make everything to work. Mario, make sure to blur this information because everyone is going to use it by my API key. And then the location.
I thought this was a freebie of the session, right, guys?
Yeah, right. But in the location property, we're going to set the variable that we're creating in our Canvas app. So let's test this. Let's put here there, and once I click here, voila, you have the weather information. If we click here, Madrid 11 and the best weather in the world.
that is not fair.
23. So you can see it's really easy, but we're not going to leave you with this ugly application. We have prepared a beautiful application that does the same using the same component we just installed here in our environment. It gets the same information, but with a proper UI, not the thing that we just created. But you can see it's really easy to have this information here loaded and just give the information that the component needs to make everything work. And we just connect everything to the host. In this case, it's a Canvas app that is getting all this information on and is showing the information here. Come on, don't be bad. Power Apps, execute faster. Let me see if I have a published version here to see if this works faster. Oh, this is the one thing that Mario was telling you about. Once you open a Power App that has a code component, it will throw you a warning. They say, okay, we have a code component here. We don't know who made this or what is actually doing. Be careful on this application that you're using.
And also, this notification will only show to the people editing the app. Okay,
Exactly.
It will not display to the user. That is important to mention.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, when you run the solution checker, it will also pop up. Okay, because the solution checker is basically going through everything, and it's basically will find out. Okay, so there is a component we cannot.
Whoa, be careful with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Make
okay?
sure your install
yeah,
proper solutions or proper components. As you can see here, it's the same. It's in a Canvas app. It's more beautiful. Prettier, exactly. I have the same component here with the information with the same trick that I showed you before, but this is getting the Santander is getting the same information and it has the same functions, but it's saving the information to a collection here, so you can have query this information. And one of the good things about Canvas apps, you can use the PCF component to get the information and then save it into a Dataverse table or a SharePoint list or whatever that you need to do. And as Mario was telling you about, once you run your application, you won't get the warning. You have the same information here, and the same component is going to be working completely. So I think I'm not missing anything else. Let's continue to the slides. As you can see here, this is a repository we're using, or where you can get this Canvas app and also the code component. So you can take that, make use of that, and make some changes. Use it to do your own API and make it work for you. So you can have something to start with. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
That was excellent, Eickhel. That was excellent, Eickhel. So, team, just to wrap up a little bit, okay? So, what was the thing that we wanted to do with this session? We wanted to really give you a very, very easy example and actually take you on a step-to-step, kind of starting with PCF. Because we realize that some people might be looking at it maybe, well, I don't really want to jump onto that. There are other possibilities. PCF seems really, really complicated. So for us developers, really is the best way to get onto the platform. Microsoft is obviously bringing the low code approach with Power Apps, but actually they have something for us as well. And even for the business users, they can actually jump on it. I mean, Eickhel has shown you how easy it is to actually create your first PCF component. Couple of points from us. PCF is really powerful. We've been telling you that through the whole session, but just be careful with it. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try to recreate something that is already there. If you have a lookup, don't try to recreate a lookup. Just reuse the one that exactly. Is there. Okay, just don't complicate things. It is so powerful, and it gives you so much flexibility that we need to be aware and we need to be mindful of that. And as Eickhel was saying, I mean, the PCF control that we created on this session, you can just get the code and try to reuse it with any other different API, or actually, all the things that you have seen, the update view, the return at the end, the get output, all those things you will need to do on any PCF control. So actually, you can use this as a template and actually maybe start adding some UI on top of it. Maybe it's doing some other things, because those functions that Eickhel has been modifying are the same ones that you will be that you will need to use on any PCF component.
Yeah. And be also aware, Mario, that you need to keep in mind security. Because you are querying information from an API or whatever, they need to get to know that if you need some security measures in order to call that API or call to your IT department to say, okay, I'm going to be querying information from this API. Is everything okay? We're not breaking some rules or something.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's actually a really, really good point. So overall, team, thank you so much for attending our session. We'll be answering the questions on the chat on the day, and it's been a pleasure to present at the Scottish Summit, and we hope you find it useful.
I hope you like it.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Eickhel. Bye. Bye.